So item 2 is actually agenda approval and modification.
Of today's agenda.
Thank you, Annie. So I'm sorry, agenda item number 2 is approval of the agenda 2022 meeting. Has everyone read the agenda? Is there any comments or modifications?
I do have a few comments to make regarding today's agenda. There are 2 new agenda items that are of the regular agenda. Excuse me, I believe someone, the microphone, there's some background noise. Thank you. So item 6, resolution with findings fulfilling a new state law requirement that allows meetings to be conducted remotely during a public health emergency. And item 11 is a new opportunity that provides an opportunity for staff to update your commission regarding items that do not appear on the agenda.
Hi, everyone. So we're having a little bit of background noise. So if you can mute yourself if you're not currently speaking, that would really help. Thank you.
So has the commissioners seen those modifications to the agenda for this meeting? Are we ready to have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and second to approve the agenda as modified. Is there any comments, public comments? All right, so all in favor, Commissioner Perlman?
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Swift? Carolyn, can you unmute yourself? So I've got to go back and let Becky. So I did not notice that there was a hand raised under public comment. So I'm going to go back, take the public comment, and then we'll come back again for the roll call. So would the person that would like to make the comment?
Yes, hello.
You are now available to speak.
Thank you. This is Becky Steinbrunner. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Becky.
Thank you. There was a lot of noise. I'm participating by phone. There was a lot of noise, and I could not hear. I think I heard that there are 2 new agenda items on today's items added to the agenda. Can you repeat those, please?
Annie will repeat them.
Thank you, Chair Phillips. So there are 2 new items on the agenda. Item 6 is a resolution with findings that allows the HRC meeting to be conducted remotely. Item 11 provides an opportunity for commission staff to update the commission regarding items that do not appear on the agenda.
All right, thank you.
All right, so now we'll go back and do our roll call for approval of the agenda as modified. Commissioner Perlman?
Aye.
Commissioner Orlando?
Aye.
Commissioner Woods?
Aye.
Commissioner Swift? Carolyn, are you there?
So it looks like Carolyn's having some technical difficulties with her microphone, so I'm gonna follow up with her and confirm and try to get her
Okay.
connected.
Thank you, Natisha.
All right, so Commissioner Phillips, aye. So the agenda has been approved for this meeting. Agenda item number 3, approval of minutes from our special meeting on May 22nd, 2022. Has all the commissioners read through the minutes? And is there any comments?
Yes. Comment from me. I did not attend this meeting, so I will not be voting on approving the minutes.
Okay. Is there any other comments? I need to do a motion and then open it up for public comments.
I move that we approve the minutes from May 2nd, 2022.
Well, okay, so you have the motion. So before we vote, do I have a second on the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. And now, are there any public comments on the minutes from the May meeting? Yes, we have one public comment. You may speak now. Becky?
Her microphone's
you-
muted.
Yeah, okay. Becky?
Hello, this is Becky Steinbrunner. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say that I really approve of the changes in the minutes. They are much more complete in detail and a much better record for the public who was not able to attend. I realize that there's also the video recording, but having more detail in these minutes is very helpful for the public. Thank you, as opposed to the action minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any other comments? All right, shall we vote? Commissioner Orlando? Do you approve of the minutes from the May 22nd meeting?
Aye.
Commissioner Woods?
Aye.
Do we have Carolyn on yet? No, Commissioner Phillips, aye. Commissioner Perlman abstains.
Yes.
So that is a quorum. So the approval of the minutes has passed. Is there any declaration of ex parte communications from any of our commissioners?
Okay. I can't hear anybody though.
We can hear you now, Carolyn. Can you hear us?
Carolyn, can you hear us? We can hear you.
I have my hearing aids in. Yeah. Oh, can you? Okay, I'm
Yes,
not
we
sure
can.
how I turn the microphone up because I do it so seldom. I can't remember.
I think she's talking to Natisha as well.
Well, the next item is public
Okay, I'm looking.
communications.
Oh, got it.
So is there any comments?
Yeah.
So are there any public comments
Bye.
from the public on items not on today's agenda? And I see one hand up. So Michael Lewis, if you want to unmute.
I will be. Okay.
Yes,
Oh, go
Good.
ahead.
good morning, commissioners. I'm going to be speaking shortly here, and then my wife Jean will have a comment for hers right after mine. And so that'll be 2 3-minute segments. I'm really sorry about your technical problems this morning. It can be really frustrating trying to get a meeting going. You should know, however, that I had no problem logging into this meeting both times. I used the URL that was supplied, pasted it into my browser, and was able to get through just fine. So this is not and I don't think this is an internal problem. I think this is a problem from the participants' computers using this Teams system. Uh, Another problem is that on the agenda, there are virtually no instructions for public participation in this meeting. There is a URL on there, but it's not a clickable link. One has to know to copy that and paste it into the browser to join the meeting. And even then, the process is fairly obscure. I did get the same blank page that one of the commissioners got, but I waited, and that blank page then was filled with the opportunity for me to sign in the meeting. So it makes it much harder to figure out what was wrong. But having the instructions for public participation that was read at the beginning of the meeting, if that could be in printed form available from the agenda, then the public would be able to see in very great detail how to participate in the meeting, either by computer or by telephone. So I hope that those two things are helpful for you in figuring this out. I had thought that we would be getting back to in-person meetings, but it sounds like with the latest COVID news that may be still a while. So it'll be worthwhile to put this information on the agenda, on each agenda, so that the public would be able to participate in the meetings as well as the commissioners. That's the end of my comment. Now Jean will provide hers.
Hi, this is Jean Brocklebank. This is my first Historic Resources Commission meeting. I am really very happy to learn about this advisory commission. I went online and read your enabling legislation, your powers and your duties. And those powers and duties are absolutely essential and wonderful to me to provide your advisory role to the Board of Supervisors and to care for the historic resources of Santa Cruz County. I came here in 1979 at the age of 30. How old was I? 34. So for over 40 years, I have watched and been very concerned about the care, preservation, protection, and acknowledgement of the value of our historic resources. So I'm just here to say this morning that I'm glad that this commission exists, and anything that the public can do to help strengthen or enhance this commission, I think the public should engage itself in your commission to help you do your very good work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so we have our next public speaker, and you can unmute yourself. So I believe that's Becky.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Becky.
Hello, thank you. This is Becky Steinbrunner. I want to commend and support the comments made by both Michael Lewis and Jean Brocklebank. I also want to point out that I could not find in today's agenda the actual letter listed in correspondence submitted by Jessica Ayala, but I could not find her letter. So I wonder if that can be added to the agenda packet. I suspect, because I do correspond with her, that this has to do with her concern about the Madonna Grange building on the Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds property. I'm not sure, but that was the first building on the fairgrounds property, and it is indeed in peril with current management at the fairgrounds plans. So I hope that you will review this structure and support its preservation. I also am very glad, is this portion of the meeting being recorded? I hope so. And I appreciate that these meetings are now regularly recorded. However, I do not see on the planning department's link for these meetings that comes up with the calendar, and you click on the month and it gives you the agenda. There's no link to that recording for that. I found it somewhere, but I don't remember where it was. So it needs to be incorporated into the website that provides the public the agendas. I wonder if how often commissioners do meet with your respective supervisors to keep this flow of information between your commission, the public, and the supervisors going both ways. I would like to request in the future if there an agenda item for commissioners to report their meetings, specific agenda item with their respective supervisors and what they can bring back to the public as a result of those meetings. I continue to be concerned about the Redmond Hirahara Farm, which is on the National Historic Registry. It is continuing to fall apart, and I see that the apartment that was is next to it, work has been stopped. So I would request that there be an update for the public regularly on the Redmond Hirahara House and related properties and farm. I think that concludes my comment, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other public comments from anyone? All right, we thank all of our commenters for what their input back to us. We really appreciate hearing from the public. Now we'll move on to agenda item number 6, consent items. This is the approval of a resolution to continue virtual Historic Resources Commission meetings in accordance with Assembly Bill number 361 and amended Government Code section number 54953. And our staff will now introduce and talk about that.
Yes, thank you, Linda. So Assembly Bill 361, which was adopted in September 2021, permits legislative bodies such as the Historic Resources Commission to continue to meet under modified teleconferencing rules during a proclaimed state of emergency, provided the legislative body complies with requirements in state law. And in September 2021, the Santa Cruz County Public Health Officer Gail Newell recommended that legislative bodies continue to engage in physical distances and recommends providing an option to meet via teleconference. The attached resolution makes the required findings, declaring that for the next 30 days, the Historic Resources Commission will meet via teleconference with the option to participate in person, and also makes the finding that at the next regularly scheduled meeting, the HRC will reconsider the circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic, and if necessary, adopt the findings to continue to hold meetings via teleconference with the option to meet in person as well. Therefore, it is recommended that your commission adopt the attached resolution to continual virtual HRC meetings with the option to meet in person in accordance with Assembly Bill 361. Thank you.
So what I'm looking for is a motion to approve this resolution. And once we have a motion and a second, we'll open it up to public comment. So is there someone who'd like to make this motion?
Yes, so moved, please.
All right, and do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any comments, any public comments on this before we vote? You want to raise it up? Yeah, so no. All right, so there are no public comments. So we will now vote on the motion to approve this resolution. Commissioner Orlando,
Aye.
Commissioner Perlman,
Aye.
Commissioner Swift,
Aye.
Commissioner Woods,
Aye.
Commissioner Phillips, aye. All right, this resolution has been approved. Moving on to, we have no public hearings. We are now into new business. So agenda item 8A, this was deferred from our July meeting. And this is to elect a new chair and vice chair to serve from July 11th, this meeting, to March 31st, 2023. So nomination for chair is now open. Do we have any nominations?
Yes, I would like to nominate Barry Perlman as chair and Linda Phillips as vice chair.
Do we have any other nominations? All right. Then Commissioner Perlman, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do.
And I will accept the nomination for vice chair. So now we will vote on the new nominations for chair and vice chair of the Historic Resources Commission. So in favor, Commissioner Orlando,
Aye.
Commissioner Perlman,
Aye.
Commissioner Swift,
Aye.
Commissioner Woods,
Aye.
Commissioner Phillips, aye.
It's like we do have a vote.
Oh. So it looks like there's a public comment. So, so whoever that is, could you, you're now unmute and comment?
Yes, hello, thank you. This is Becky Steinbrunner. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I support this motion and want to thank you, Ms. Phillips, for your work serving as chair. I really think that Commissioner Perlman will bring excellent energy to this commission. I do have a question. I'm aware that this action was deferred from an earlier meeting to today. It seemed like there was some information that was pending. Can you enlighten the public on why this action, this item of business was deferred until today with an abbreviated time that the new chairman will serve? Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to address that. And the deferral of the selection was based on a temporary health concern that I had that if it had gone a different way, might have prevented me from taking the role. But it has resolved and it was deferred, waiting for a medical update. So that's as to why it was deferred. As to why it's a short term, the reason for that is that if we complete the current proposed term next March 31st, we'll be back on track for an annual term to run from April 1st to March 31st, which is our normal sequence of term of a year. So we're doing a short abbreviation and then returning to our normal schedule next March 31st. And that addresses the second part of your concern.
Thank you very much. That is good news all around. I'm glad you are healthy and able and willing to take on this job. Thank you very much. When will you assume your new job as chairman?
Well, that depends on how many more minutes it takes to elect me.
Okay, I'll be quiet. I get the hint. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So we have the voting by the commission, and the new chair and new vice chair has been approved. So I now turn this meeting over to our new chair, Commissioner Perlman.
Thank you very much. And that thank you is both a polite thank you for giving me the floor, and it is also a very deep thank you, Linda, for your many years of service as the chairman. I believe that we're so fortunate with this particular group of commissioners. I feel very lucky to be working with the rest of you and enjoy it very much. And with no further ado, let's move into our first action item of new business, or second item of new business. I would like to welcome our folks from the MA. Thank you for being here. Thank you for preparing for us. And thirdly, thank you for your patience. It's very unusual. We've always started our meetings within 5 minutes of actual start time up until today. So I appreciate your hanging with us, and may I turn the presentation over to both of you.
Well, thank you, Barry. Can you all hear me and see me?
Clearly, Rob.
Yes.
Very good.
No.
Great. Was that a yes? You could see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we don't have your presentation yet, but we do see you.
Got it. I'll take over the screen here in a second. And I'm thrilled today to be joined by my colleague, Nikki Patterson. Nikki serves as our Director of Development and Communications. Our friend Marla Novo is actually in the middle of deinstalling an exhibition as we speak. So she sends her regards, and knowing you will understand that we're changing over the galleries. But Nikki and I want to be efficient. We want to certainly be mindful of your time. And so I'm going to share my screen here. And can you all see that okay?
Yes.
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 Great. Okay, we're off to a good start here. Well, we appreciate you giving us a little bit of face time to tell you what we've been up to here at the MA. We appreciate having this time once a year to talk about what we've accomplished and more importantly, what we have on the docket for this coming year. So for those of you who are new to the group, I know it's a lot of returning members and I'm repeating myself, but for those who are new to our conversations, the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History was founded in 1996 with really the intent to promote a greater understanding of contemporary art and the history of Santa Cruz County. And today we do a lot of things. 26 years later, we produce a series of rotating art and history exhibitions and festivals. We host a variety of educational and outreach programs. We collaborate on cultural celebrations with a wide variety of community partners. We maintain a beautiful permanent collection of art, objects, and artifacts. We manage a historical archive and multiple historic sites. And we also operate that vibrant public plaza called Abbott Square right on the museum's doorstep. So we stay busy for sure. What's important is for us to talk a little bit about how we preserve history. It's a part of our name, the Museum of Art and History, and both art and history are a priority for us. So just taking you through this quickly, as I said, we maintain a permanent collection of regional artifacts, a research library, historical archives with online collection guides. We manage those 3 historic sites I mentioned, so beautiful Evergreen Cemetery, the Octagon Building, and Davenport Jail. We produce history publications. We host thousands of students each year who come to the MA and to those historic sites. We offer fellowship opportunities in archives, exhibitions, and public history, as well as our annual Distinguished Historian Award. And we support multiple in-house volunteer committees that promote local history and partner with other local groups such as the History Forum to share the stories of Santa Cruz County. And so that is sort of the bulk of what we do, but we also do a variety of other activations in addition to educational tours and exhibitions. So as you know, we present the Historic Landmark Blue Plaque Awards. We've been doing that for a number of years. We present Dia de los Muertos, an annual community celebration that takes place at Evergreen Cemetery, as well as at the museum. And we also host a variety of publication events, so a series of readings and book launches from works that we publish, but also that other folks publish as well that talk about local history. And those are just some of the titles of recent books that we've hosted here at the museum and some additional talks that are coming up in the coming weeks. So here's the good stuff. Let me talk a little bit about some of the recent projects we've had. And then my colleague, Nikki, feel free to jump in, Nikki, and help me out here so not everybody's having to listen to my annoying Midwestern accent through this. But these are some of the things that we've been up to. So this is the exhibition that just closed. This is the one that Marla is working to deinstall today. It was Out of the Ashes, which we have in our Lezen Gallery since last summer, about the CZU fires. And it was a very, if you had a chance to see it, it was a very impactful exhibition that meant a lot to our community.
Mm-hmm.
Do You Know My Name, by the same publication that the MA published, is in our history gallery now, opened last fall and will continue through this summer. Queer Santa Cruz. This was actually our first online exhibition that we opened during the pandemic. And then we realized a physical manifestation of it in the History Gallery as well. And that will be on view through September of 2023. Frequency. This was our big digital arts festival that we hosted last fall in the museum in Abbott Square. There you see beautiful octagon building, but really animating the space with digital arts and culture.
Mm-hmm.
And then this was an exciting program we launched this year, and I'm excited to tell you about it. It's our residency program, where we host both artists in residency as well as historians. And the idea is that they dig into a specific topic and research that. This year, our historian in residence was Luna John Bay, who was working around the London Nelson Legacy Initiative. And I'm excited to report that Luna will also be continuing her work with us into 2023 as well. But it's been a great program and a great way to unearth some stories that perhaps were not as prominent. Davenport Day, this was a great day that we hosted in March. And Nikki, I'll let you share a few words about this great celebration.
Sure. So as Rob mentioned, we have the Out of the Ashes exhibition, which inspired Davenport Day. We were looking to reactivate the Davenport jail, and we thought how best to do that is to activate community and bring people together. So this was a celebration of not just the Davenport community, but also those artists in the area that were impacted by the fires. So we had over 30 different vendors. All the vendors were impacted in some way by either CZU or local fires. We also had Alberta Orlando join us, and Sally Iverson, and many other historians. It's a beautiful day of healing and just celebrating the resilience of our community and artistry as well. So that is what I have about Davenport Day. There's talk of perhaps doing this annually, but it was a wonderful reactivation of the Davenport jail. And I believe Rob will be sharing some future plans as well.
Yeah, we also launched this great program. It was called In Poor Taste. We love this. So it's a cocktail series, but we also paired it with different themes, different historical eras. We weren't sure how popular it was going to be, but the first time we did this, we had over 75 people signed up for this, and it was all about the California Gold Rush. And we work with Front and Cooper, which is our local bar down in Abbott Square, and they come up with themed cocktails. And then we have a variety of guest speakers. We've had Jeff Dunn and Tracy Bliss. And coming up later this month, we're going to be looking at surf culture.
Yeah, actually this Sunday.
This Sunday. So
Not so fast.
yes, if you want a couple cocktails and want to enjoy a lazy summer afternoon at the Ma, please join us for Import Taste.
And one other thing about this Sunday's Import Taste, they are bringing in some of those historic redwood surfboards. So we'll have Bob Pearson joining us, Kim Stoner, and Jeff Dunn once again.
And the cocktails aren't bad either, folks. So this was another series we debuted this actually in 2021, and partly it was because the pandemic. We were deep in the pandemic, and we were realizing a lot of people wanted to visit our outdoor spaces. So this is at Evergreen Cemetery, and it's called Beyond the Grave. So we invest in a series of site-specific commission performances by local and regional artists that speak to the stories and the landscape of historic Evergreen Cemetery. So this was our second year doing that, and I'm excited to share we'll be bringing it back next year with support from the National Endowment for the Arts. This was a big one. We were so excited to host the Santa Cruz County History Fair. Nikki did a great job of coordinating so many organizations. And Nikki, why don't you just quickly share the highlights of that event?
Yes. So the Santa Cruz County History Fair had I think just a 2-year hiatus through the pandemic. So this was the first year back, and also the first time that the Ma hosted this wonderful annual event. We had over 40 participating historic organizations, including the Historic Resources Commission. I believe Barry Perlman and Neil joined us, and it was just a wonderful afternoon of really, it was like a reunion, it felt. Just, sharing. A lot of families joined us. We had over 200 attendees, and it was a free event. And it was also sponsored by the Humanities Institute from UCSC. So great attendance, wonderful event. And we look forward to supporting this coming year's event as well. Perhaps maybe not as the host, but I'm happy to share all the information that I gathered in coordinating this event.
It was like a family reunion. It was great to see so many folks and so many organizations come out and share the history of Santa Cruz County. And this is the last slide I'll tell you about for this year. It's an exhibition called Freak Power, which is all about the artwork behind Hunter S. Thompson's political movement. So this is up in our art form gallery through September. It's been a very popular exhibition. As you can see, a lot of text and a lot of sort of historical photos and artwork a part of this exhibition. So those were just some of the history highlights of this past year. Some upcoming projects, just so you have this on your radar. The Land of Milk and Honey. This is all about agriculture in California and Mexico, co-presented with the Mexicali Biennial. So that'll be coming up this fall, as will our new outdoor festival called Common Ground, which we just announced last week. This is a 10-day festival happening across Santa Cruz County. And some of the projects in that are the Writing on the Wall. This is an installation that'll take place at Davenport Jail. A project called Reflection, which is a tribute to the Santa Cruz Venetian water carnivals of the late 1800s. So we'll be going to the Capitola Nautical Parade with a water vessel, and then we'll be deconstructing that and putting it in the art form gallery with a lot of the history of the Venetian water carnivals. The Language of Birds. This is a performance at Evergreen Cemetery and Wagner Grove, a new commission. And a beautiful project called Transborder. If you're familiar with the Bracero Legacy Project, this is a project of photographs, archival photographs from the Stanford collection that we will travel to different farmers markets across Santa Cruz County with oral histories that go with that. And then here's the company called Bandaloop, who will performing, they call it vertical dance, will be performing on the side of the museum and the McPherson Center building during the festival. And just a couple other ones, I promise I'll be wrapping up here soon. Kincentricity, this is a project that we have going on with the Amamutsun Tribal Band. It's all about Indigenous learning gardens. And we were excited that we received a $200,000 grant from the IMLS organization, the Institute of Museums and Library Services, to realize this. And so we'll be revamping our outdoor garden areas to be Indigenous gardens. A great exhibition coming up with Nat Geo photographer Franz Lanting and his partner Christine Ekstrom called Bay of Life. A lot of partners involved in this. And a wonderful artist named Chanupa Hanska Luger, an Indigenous artist based out of New Mexico, bringing a new exhibition called Future Ancestral Technologies to the Solari in the spring. And then this is another project we're really excited to complete. You may have heard us talking about this for a number of years. We started fundraising for it back in 2018, but it is a new ADA pathway that we'll be putting into Evergreen Cemetery, as well as a visitor kiosk with a lot more information about the site, events happening there, directions, self-guided tours, that type of thing. So a lot of generous people in the community help support that project. And last but not least, our collections digitization initiative. This is a big one for us. It's a multi-year, 4-year effort to digitize all of the MA's archives. So we have embarked upon that. We just started. We also received some funding from California State Libraries to get that going. So we're excited to report back on that and make those resources more accessible. So that's what's coming up. What's next for us? We just started this past year on our strategic plan. It was a 5-year strategic plan, and we just completed year 1 of that, where we hit or exceeded a number of our first-year targets. So over the coming 4 years, we'll continue that plan, and the 3 strategies are to increase engagement and retention, to deepen relationships and collaboration, and also build resilience and capacity as we rebuild coming out of the pandemic. The plan is available on our website if you're interested in reading it, and I encourage you to visit that. So here's the good stuff. Here's the money, right? The good or the bad stuff, depending on how you look at it. But I know this commission is always interested in how we allocate county funding. And so I just wanted to start with this snapshot. I shared this last year, but this is our 5-year financial plan. And it shows where we came from there in 2021 fiscal year and where we're going through the plan. And what you're seeing here is basically a little bit of a reallocation of our expenses. So as we rebuild, what you'll be seeing is us investing more in program content, meaning artists, curators, researchers, historians, exhibitions, investing more in operations and the guest experience, and investing less in payroll, so staff positions. So year over year, you'll see some of those increases come down or go up, and you see where we want to end up there in fiscal year 26, which is much more aligned with museum standards in terms of budget allocations. But here's our budget snapshot. Last year, we operated on just under a $2 million budget, 1.9 million. And for this current year, which we just started on July 1st, that increases slightly to just over $2 million. And again, this is a snapshot, everything rolled up, but you can see those allocations under expense, and a lot of that directly aligns with that slide that I just showed you about how we're moving into some of these reallocations. And here's the important one. This is county funding, and how we allocate our roughly $155,000 from the county. So you can see under expense, and a lot of this equates to generally the full percentages of what the museum spends. The majority of funding is in staff salaries, and that is curatorial, operations, administration, and education. Curatorial artist fees, exhibition installation, public programs, the maintenance costs there of Evergreen and Davenport jail, insurance and utilities. And that is how we arrive at that $155,000. And I would be remiss not to take a moment to thank the county for its continuing support. It has been a challenging few years for all of us, but particularly those of us in the arts and cultural sector. And so I think we have a really good plan on how we're rebuilding and continuing to offer really important work to the community and really engage our local creatives in the work that we're doing. So as we continue with our strategic plan, we'll keep all of you updated. We'll keep all of our donors and sponsors updated. But I did want to thank all of you for your ongoing support because you've been so generous. And I'm happy, that's it. I am happy to, let me stop sharing my screen here. Hold on. Bear with me, bear with me. The technical problems continue. Hold on.
We see you.
Yeah,
Oh, you
you know
see
what,
me.
Rob? Yes, we see you.
Okay, great. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. May I call for any questions from commissioners? Any commissioners have any questions they'd like to ask of this presentation?
Well, I
Yes,
have.
Barry. Hello.
Yes, hello.
Hi, Barry, it's Neil.
Yes, Neil.
I just want to thank Rob, Nikki, you guys, we should be so proud in this community for your hard work. I think the MA is just a shining beacon downtown in Santa Cruz. And just kudos to you for the effort and the work that you're doing there.
Oh, thanks so much, Neil. We appreciate it.
Linda, you had a comment?
Yes, so the county funding that you get, the 155,000, is that still being put into the general fund? So you're not tracking how much of that money is being spent on specific history preservation projects and initiatives?
Maybe, can you bring up that slide again, Rob? Maybe that might be helpful.
You bet. Hold on, hold on. Do you all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so Linda, to your question, generally we look at that 155,000 coming into what I would call our general fund. But these expense areas under it are how we allocate that $155,000. But to your question about history versus art, so much of our work crosses over. So we don't, with the exception of those historic properties that I mentioned, Davenport Jail, Octagon, and Evergreen Cemetery, a lot of it spans between both art and history. So as an example, I shared the those upcoming exhibitions, the Out of the Ashes exhibition. Because it's dealing with history and art, the funding is supporting both of those. But as a specific example of funding of history-related programs, something like the History Fair, the cost that we incurred on that, the Historian in Residence. So that program that I just showed you, those history-specific items are also supported by the funding. But ultimately, yes, 155 is coming into the general fund. We do not designate this is art, this is history. It's interdisciplinary, and that is how we look at our budget.
Thank you. The funding for the cemetery and the jail, how much of that is going toward the jail?
It's lesser going to the jail. I don't have the budget right in front of me, but of that 6,500, close to 4,500 to 5,000 is going to the cemetery. And I should also tell you that ADA project that I mentioned, as well as the kiosk, that is an additional 150,000 that we fundraised for that is going to the to that project at Evergreen. But in general, that 6,500, 85% of it is going to the cemetery due to some of the needs of that, much more than the jail.
You said you had a very good turnout for Davenport Day.
Mhm.
And it sounded like you had enough of a both vendor turnout and public interest.
Yes.
that you're seriously consider continue, doing that again next year, or, you know, making it much more frequent. That's certainly encouraging.
Yes, the community response was just so positive, and they were hoping to do something again. And that is something that I'm happy to support, you know, as a partnership with the community and the local businesses.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, when you look at the entire people there with MAW and helping with all the programs and activities, how many are staff? What percentage in number is staff versus volunteer? Do you have to maintain what you're doing?
Sure. Well, I'm happy to tell you, Linda, we have a full-time staff of 12 people. And just as a point of reference, when I came in before the pandemic, it was 24. So we as a staff have reduced our labor just because we can't sustain that. We're not a $3 million organization like we once were. So we have 12 full-time staff members. We have about 6 part-time staff members. And those folks, most of those folks are our guest service folks who work at the front desk. And volunteers, we count over 100 folks as our volunteers. Certainly Evergreen Cemetery, the Evergreen Committee, which is well over 30 individuals who regularly work every Friday out there. But yeah, volunteers are a big part of our organization, and we've had to rely on them a lot more as we've reduced personnel, quite honestly. But it is important for me, it's important that we are investing our resources into the content. And the content is the art and the history. Again, it's the artists and the curators and the researchers and the historians. And we are here to support that work. And that is partly why we have done these budget shifts, so that we are investing more in the quality of that experience. I'm happy to share too, I'm really excited to report this number, that this past year was actually the highest paid admission that the museum has ever seen. And that speaks to the quality of the programs that we're offering. And so we will continue to invest in that. But, you know, we are a lean and mean team, and we are doing a lot with a small group. So we welcome all volunteers at any time.
Great.
Along with that line, when you say, and you've mentioned partners, and I know a lot of that is with business partners because you get supporterships and other types of support. But do you have any upcoming or planned activities with some of the other museums in the county?
Yeah, well, so as an example for this Common Ground Festival that I mentioned this fall, we're actually partnering with the Capitola Museum on that project. Nikki was in close contact with all of the local museums on the history fair. But to be honest with you, Linda, you know, there's also only so much capacity we have. So we do try to leverage these partnerships, but we also can't sustain everything for everybody. And so we hope to be a resource to inspire our colleagues also to take a leadership role. But again, with limited resources, as an example, it's highly unlikely that we would host the history fair every year. That was very time consuming, and we were thrilled to do it, but we also have other projects that we have to do. So hopefully some of the folks that we got engaged will take a leadership position. Nikki can work with them, and another organization can host that. But we are not in a position to be able to carrying everything for every partner. But we really do want to support them so that they can also realize some of this work.
Mm-hmm. And we did work together on Museum Advocacy Day this year that happened in March. You know, it was well attended, and there was maybe a handful of museums attending, but it was just to raise awareness for the state of museums and the need for support and advocacy at the state level. So, and then we do meet monthly as well. There's a Santa Cruz Museum's Zoom call where we share ideas and our plans and our projects and how we can support each other.
Thank you. And Rob, I want to thank you for your frankness. Really appreciate that because we're trying, you know, working on our relationship and our partnership and us, what we can do for each other. And so this annual sharing and talking is important. Thank you.
It's Carolyn here. Can I make a comment?
Yes, this is a perfect time for you to make a comment.
Thank you. Okay. I'll try and be brief. Part of, and it's hard to get this across because a lot of, I think what we've been trying to accomplish is greater communication between MA and how it gets this funding and our commission and what our goals are. Which is, and the big thing is historic preservation. That's really what we strive for. And much of it has to do with the built environment, what you can see. So we're concerned about, you know, how MA spends resources that it gets from the county on preservation of historic structures. And, you know, and also everything else. So so I'm going to say that, you know, I'm very impressed with, you know, I'm one of those old people that was around before MA existed. So I've seen it from its days on the drawing board. And so I'm really, really impressed with your presentation and its evolution. It's changed. The material that you've been including in the last couple of years is, I mean, this one today is outstanding. So I'm more convinced than I have been in years that MA is accomplishing its what it wants to do, and it's moving ahead with just some really superlative programs that are going to touch a lot of lives. But still, and that said, the word preservation is still in my mind. And what I heard, I listened with that little headset on, and what I heard today that impressed me is that you are doing what I believe is more in terms of historic preservation. The changes at Evergreen to get access to for people with disabilities. That's amazing. And the big thing for me is the changes that you're making in digitizing your collection, and having that material come and be more available to researchers and students, because I can see more people, a greater diversity of people being interested and active in history, and they're beginning to look at that your archive in a way that it's never been seen before. So that is very important to me, and as a commissioner. So that's just what I wanted to say, is that I think you're doing an amazing job. But I would like you to keep in mind the preservation part of it. And when you you came much closer this year in touching on the things that we needed to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you for your kind words on everything you said. And I've said this before. I think the one area that the MA has been very deficient in has been in this digitization effort. And we're probably 15 to 20 years behind our colleagues. And so it's very important to me, it's very important to our team that this work be done. And particularly because we saw it during the pandemic, because when we were all sheltering in place and we were tired of watching Netflix, people were on our website and they wanted to learn about history. And there was only so far you could go. So it's been really also very inspiring to us, the fact that we are also getting other funding to help support this effort. Because this, when it's all said and done, it's probably going to be a $750,000 to $1 million effort when everything has been digitized. But we have a very big collection and it's a lot of work. And we also want to do it in the right way. So when we are handling the collection, let's say from the Ama Mutsun tribal band, we want them to be a partner with us so we are telling the story correctly. So that just takes time. But I appreciate you recognizing that. And I agree. I think we're always trying to find that balance of historic preservation and art, right? Because quite honestly, I have to present to the County Art Commission in a couple weeks, and they want to hear all about the art. But thanks for your comments on that, Carolyn. I really appreciate that you've recognized that work, and we'll keep you updated.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Rob. Thank you, Carolyn. I see Annie that, I'm sorry, I see Becky that you're holding to speak, so we'll wrap up the commissioner comments and then move to the public comments in just a moment for both Michael and Becky. So I would like to add mine. I participated, Nikki, in the history fair, and I want to thank you. That was a marvelous event. Really, I think that all the people that worked the fair had as much fun as all of the guests that attended the fair. And it was a good opportunity for us and our commission to network with other historic organizations. So my compliments. Because of Rob's comment earlier regarding the hosting of it, may I inquire about next year's history fair? And do we have our host in place? Will you be doing it next year?
So we're not planning to do it next year. We're hoping another partner steps up and is willing to do that. And we have a lot of really good information, updated contacts, a lot of the information that Nikki ended up having to discover, quite honestly, because, staffing had changed and all of that good stuff. So we're happy to work hand in hand with another partner. And certainly, let me say this too, Barry, if we can't find a partner, yeah, probably we would step up and host it. But again, we're also trying to empower other folks to take on a leadership role with our support.
Well understood, and good comprehensive response, so that there looks like that you are the net in case it needs to fall into someone's lap for next year.
We are the net. We are the net.
Great. Couldn't be a better net. So my compliments on that project. Now, I don't believe we have any more commissioner reports. Oh, Alberta, yes. Would you care to say something? Okay. In which case, I believe Becky has been waiting longer than Michael. So may I call on Becky first with her comment?
Thank you. This is Becky Steinbrunner. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you. I can never remember if I've hit *6 or not, so thank you. Thank you for this presentation. I'm participating by phone, so I could not see any of your slides. I request that they be included in today's packet for public review in this going forward. I would like to see them. I have heard nothing about the Octagon Museum, and it is one of the 3 properties that the MA is supposed to be responsible for. So I would like some discussion about the MA's preservation and historic interpretation efforts for the Octagon Museum. I appreciate very much that the MA staff is working to digitize documents. I am also working to digitize historic documents with the Santa Cruz County Amateur Radio Club, which is 105 years old. It's one of the oldest clubs in the country and has a very rich history. So we have been wondering where to send our documents once we have digitized them. So I wonder if you could accept them, and if not, where you would recommend that we put them in archive for safekeeping. I'm going to be candid. I really have to wonder why the MA is the only museum that the County Board of Supervisors funds. And that's been kicking around in my head. And how did that come to be? And why does it continue such that no other museums get any funding at all? So I'll be honest and say I'm a little shocked that the MA staff, which is paid, is not going to sponsor or host the Santa Cruz County History Fair in the future, and hopes that somebody else will step up. But those are volunteers keeping these museums open already. So I just have to say that because I think it needs to be said, and I think it deserves discussion. How accessible are the access to the archives and the public research library? I have had difficulty accessing things as a member of the public, and quite frankly, in looking at the link to the Form 990 on the MA's website, I have great concern about the entry on last year's Form 990 that shows $55,416 revenue to the MA from sale of inventory. That's a hot issue in the news right now. Museums selling artifacts and things to make money. What was sold? What was sold? And I see that there is a gross rental income of $377,906 after expenses. Why not?
Excuse me, it's been 3
okay.
minutes, may I?
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Becky. I'd like to call on Michael's question first, and then Rob, I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond to Becky's question, but let's get all the questions on the table first. Okay, that's all right. Michael Lewis, you have your hand raised.
Hi, this is Jean Brocklebank, also
Hi,
with Michael
Jean.
Lewis. I don't have questions, I just have some comments. I neglected to initially to say that I am a resident of Live Oak in District 1. And so the Commissioner Neil Woods is the appointee from District 1. Hi, Neil. I was also, since I've been here since 1979, originally involved with the Museum of Art and History when it was upstairs in the downtown library. I was one of the original volunteer docents, and I did that for many years. I also was a docent at the new museum when it was changed to the old jailhouse. So I have a great history with MA, and I have watched it evolve over the years. I am glad to see that budgetarily wise, there's going to be more of a focus on programs and operations rather than salaries. I did have a quick question. On the insurance and utilities, $20,000 each year, I was wondering how much of that is for utilities and how much for insurance. I'm guessing it's mostly utilities, but I can maybe find that out later on, not during this meeting. And then also, finally, I would like to reinforce what Carolyn Swift said about preservation and history. And Rob, you mentioned balance, and I think balance is very important. I therefore would like to see more history. I will say that it's been a few years since I've been to the History Gallery. Several years ago, I went and I was greatly disappointed. It used to be a very rich Chucky Jam full gallery of history that one could immerse oneself in, walking around in that room and getting as much history as possible. It was rich components. That was decreased. I don't know if it's still the same with that room where you go in and bounce around and play with colorful things. And it just seemed depauperate compared to the rich history that was that history gallery for so many years. And I haven't been back, so I can't say that it's still that way. But I did want to let commissioners, historic preservation commissioners, and Ma, both of you know that that's very important to me to revitalize and renovate that history room for the richness that used to be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean. I don't believe we have any more public comments, and I'm still seeing, Jean, your hand is raised, and Becky, yours is. So if you could unraise your hands for that, thank you, appreciate that. Just, this is my first meeting managing the progress of the meeting, so trying to do it as effectively as I can, and I'm learning as I go. So, Rob and Nikki, thank you very much for an excellent presentation. Rob, would you like to make any final comments to respond to the public comments?
Happy to respond, Barry. Thank you. Let me just sort of give a blanket statement saying both Jean and Becky, feel free to reach out to me at any time too. And I'm happy to go through our 990s, our budget. I'm happy to give you a personal tour of the history gallery. I'd love you to see what we're doing and understand some of those numbers. And, I'll say this is my sort of general comment. The MA is a very complex business model. We're not a straightforward museum. And I say that because we're managing the McPherson building, which is a commercial retail operation. And so it's not, I think when you look at the 990 or you look at, sort of these basic numbers, it seems pretty straightforward. But it really isn't. The MA manages these historic assets. We manage the downtown trash district for our neighbors. We manage retail business. I mean, it is not everything that sort of it appears to the eye. So all of that's to say is I'm happy to take anybody through the specific line items so that they can understand it. But specifically, Jean, we'd love to get you back to see what we're doing in the history gallery. We try to refresh it about every 12 to 18 months, just to keep it fresh, to tell the stories and to tell different stories of our community. So please come back and see that. Utilities and insurance, it costs a lot of money to raise. I mean, it costs a lot of money to run these buildings. So insurance and utilities alone, it's over $100,000. So, the $20,000 is a small amount compared to the bigger cost of running all of this. Becky, you had so many good questions, and I'll just hit briefly on some of these. Octagon, we use the Octagon as part of our Abbott Square Market. So currently, Octagon has food vendors in it. All of the signage is still there, talking about the history of the building, but it is used as an active vendor market. Digitization, as we learn, we're happy to share the information we learn. So as you continue with your own digitization efforts, we're happy to share with you what we learn along our journey. County funding, I can't speak to that. It's been in place for as long as the museum has been here. But I'm sure some of the commissioners here can give you some backstory on that. And your last two questions were on access hours. Back to the digitization effort. Right now, the only access to our library is if you physically come in person. We're only open 24 hours a week to the public. That's all we can sustain in terms of staffing. So it is very limited, but we are open and we can make special appointments on that. And last but not least, you had a question on the 990 as it related to cost of goods or something like that. A lot of that is the merchandise and the store that we operate at the museum, so product that we're selling. So again, I'm happy to have a one-on-one and tell you more about the budget, go line by line. It's important that our supporters understand that. But my closing remark is it's a complicated model. and there's a lot of in and out and a lot of assets that we're managing. So please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to have those discussions.
Thank you very much. Very complete response. We love our relationship with the museum and look to perpetuate it as much as we can. I think it is our intention as a commission to participate on an annual basis in the museum fair, the history fair. Good opportunities there. And thank you very much for a articulate report to us today. We appreciate your being part of our meeting and look forward to a continued long-term positive relationship.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, public who joined the call. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, shall we continue with our historic resources agenda for today? And that would bring us to item 8C. At this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to our staffer, Annie Murphy, who is going to review and provide comments on the amendments for the general plan regarding historic preservation.
Thank you. Actually, I wanted to request if we can take a 5-minute break.
That's a great idea.
Okay.
How about a 5-minute break right now? We're, I believe, what is the time? 11:50, and we'll resume in 11:55. Okay, so a quick break for everybody. Thank you.
And Commissioner Orlando, if you can hear me, I just wanted to let you know you are currently muted. So if you'd like to unmute yourself, just press *6. That way, when we get started, if you need to ask any questions, you can access your phone. So *6 to unmute yourself. Great.
How did I?
Yes, you got it. Thank you.
They went on a break. I think after this one, everybody should go out to lunch on the committee.
This is a nice lunch. Is it? We should get some more. They had a lousy lunch. For me. No. Okay.
Good morning, commissioners. It's still morning for 4 more minutes. Sorry that we're 1 minute late. But I welcome everybody back to our summer meeting of the Historic Resources Commission in the County of Santa Cruz. We're on new business, item 8, item C, and it's a review of policies in the general plan for the sustainability update. And I would like to have Annie Murphy, our staffer, take the floor at this time.
Thank you, Chair Perlman. So this is a review and providing a recommendation to the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors on the proposed amendments to historic preservation policies in the general plan, which is submitted as part of the sustainability policy and regulatory update. So first, to give a little background on the sustainability update. The sustainability update is a major undertaking through the Community Development and Infrastructure Department, previously the Planning Department, that provides a framework for development in the unincorporated area of the county over the next 20 years. And this includes an update to the county general plan, which is the 1994 general plan, so it's been some time since it's been updated. And the general plan acts as a blueprint for land use and development in the county. So it's a very important document. So the focus on the sustainability update is providing new policies and regulations to support more sustainable communities, increasing housing and transportation options. It also includes updated regulations for agricultural land. And the sustainability update focuses primarily on development within urban areas and on retaining the existing regulatory framework in both the general plan and county code that protects natural and cultural resources, which includes historical resources. So for Chapter 5 of the general plan, which is renamed Agricultural, Natural Resources, and Conservation, this is a partial update to this chapter, which updates and strengthens selected policies and regulations protecting resources. The historic resources policies are provided in Chapter 5 of the general plan. And the objective, which is sort of the overall framework for the underlying policies, is to protect and where possible, restore buildings, sites, and districts of historic significance to preserve the rich cultural heritage of the community. So there are updates to selected policies and implementation strategies for historic resources in the general plan, and these implementation strategies help to ensure implementation of the various policies. And the general purpose of updating these policies is to strengthen the policy basis for historic preservation, also to provide policy support for future updates to the Santa Cruz County Chapter 16.42, which is the historic preservation chapter, where the regulations for protecting and rehabilitating historic resources are located over the 20-year planning horizon of the sustainability update. And the intent is also to support goals and concerns of your commission expressed over the several years in discussions regarding goals and activities. And the updating to the policies in the general plan also will allow time for research and community outreach and other work necessary to develop ordinance amendments that can address more complex historic preservation issues. So the key updates to the historic preservation policies and strategies in the general plan. So one focus is on encouraging the maintenance of historic buildings, and also providing a framework to support future ordinance amendments. So there is a new policy in the general plan, historic resource property maintenance, encourage the maintenance and upkeep of historic resources to avoid the need for major rehabilitation and to reduce the risks of demolition, loss through fire or neglect, or impacts from natural disasters. So this policy is focused on encouraging the maintenance and repair, but it does also provide a general basis of support for the commission and staff to undertake future updates to the code, including evaluating an ordinance that could prevent demolition by neglect and require affirmative maintenance of historic buildings. Also related to encouraging maintenance of historic buildings, there's an existing strategy in the general plan regarding incentives for historic preservation, which adds some language to the strategy to consider revising ordinance regulations to allow for expanded uses in zone districts. And this would be, has been previously discussed with your commission as a way to allow additional uses in a zone district where these new uses could support rehabilitation and repair of a historic building. And also consider revising zoning regulations to provide incentives for retaining and maintaining historic resources, which sort of provides a policy support for additional incentives that your commission could consider.
This is done.
And another focus is on reviewing demolition applications for structures that have not been previously surveyed. And the point of this is to recognize that there are many buildings in the county that have not been surveyed, and to prevent demolition of a potential historic resource. So the language in this strategy is to continue the review of proposed applications for demolition of any structure more than 50 years old that has not been previously surveyed for historic significance, and to require a historic report prepared by a qualified historic consultant for structures that may have the potential to qualify as a historic resource as determined by county planning staff. And another focus is regarding historic surveys. Your commission has noted that it's been many years since a survey was conducted. There is an existing strategy which discusses maintaining and updating the historic resources inventory. So new language is added to the strategy to seek funding for updating the Santa Cruz County Historic Resources Inventory, prioritizing surveys in areas that have not been updated recently. So this helps to provide a support for seeking funding, because without funding, the survey is not going to, the updated survey is not going to happen. So that provides support for making that happen. There's also a new strategy to provide improved access to public information on the website, to update information regarding historic resources and incentives available to property owners, including the existing zoning incentives, the California Historic Building Code, grants, and tax incentives. And the commission has also previously discussed updating the historic context statement. The current context statement was done several decades ago and is not necessarily complete. So this, the language is consider applying for grant funds and updating the historic context statement as providing an option if that's the commission decides that's a priority. Also, there is a new strategy to broaden the county's support for museums and organizations, which reads support local museums and other local organizations involved in historic preservation to increase community awareness and appreciation of the value and importance of historic preservation. So this provides support for the county supporting other organizations in addition to the Museum of Art and History that are involved with historic preservation. And this last strategy basically clarifies that environmental review is required, and it reads, environmental review should be required for any project with the potential to significantly impact historic resources. So as mentioned previously to your commission, an environmental impact report was prepared for the sustainability update. And this was a programmatic level environmental impact report, did not consider specific projects, but looked at the potential for growth under the sustainability update and how this might impact historic resources and other environmental resources. And the environmental impact report states that because the potential for future development accommodated by the sustainability update to cause a substantial adverse change to a historical resource cannot be precluded, impacts to historical resources are conservatively considered potentially significant. So the EIR does recommend 2 mitigation measures to reduce potential impacts to historic resources. This isn't the exact wording, but the general components of these 2 mitigation measures. The first one is to require evaluation for development proposals involving any structure more than 50 years old that has not been previously surveyed. And if the structure potentially meets criteria for designation upon review by county staff, then a Department of Parks and Recreation form would be required to be prepared by a qualified consultant. And the county shall provide measures to ensure that proposed development involving structures that meet designation criteria shall conform with the Secretary of the Interior standards. The second mitigation measure is regarding when relocation or demolition of the historic structure is approved, which is subject to stringent requirements in the county code already, but this addresses documentation of these structures where demolition is approved. And to require appropriate documentation, which includes still and video photography, written record with site-specific history and appropriate contextual information, and includes some other details regarding appropriate documentation. Staff in order to implement sort of near-term strategies and policies, staff will be preparing ordinances for review by your commission. One which has been previously discussed is not part of the sustainability update, but staff plans to bring to your commission later this year the incentive-based approach to encourage maintenance of historic structures by allowing additional uses in the zone district where such uses can support the maintenance or restoration of historic building. Also in the same or different ordinance, an ordinance implementing mitigation measure number 1, which is also reflected in a new strategy in the general plan to require permits and evaluation for the demolition of a structure 50 years old or older, a DPR form for a property which may qualify for listing, and standards requiring that the remodel of a structure determined to qualify for listing comply with the Secretary of the Interior standards. And then also an ordinance implementing mitigation measure 2, which is regarding appropriate documentation of resources approved for demolition or relocation. And staff also wants to support the work of your commission, which could include your commission considering and prioritizing policies and strategies supporting historic preservation, which could include considering an ordinance to prevent demolition by neglect, considering future historic surveys, considering updated context statement, consideration of the Mills Act, which is a policy in the general plan that was not changed in this update, and also considering other priorities. And I also wanted to mention that future updates to future general plan policies are also certainly can be considered by your commission. If it's not included in the sustainability update, there's still an opportunity for updating policies in the future. So to conclude, the updated policies and strategies for historic resources in Chapter 5 of the general plan, as provided in the sustainability update, support the current work of your commission and provide support for more comprehensive future updates to the county code, which can provide additional support for the preservation of our historic heritage. Therefore, it is recommended that your commission review the proposed amendments to the general plan policies regarding historic resources in the sustainability update, which is provided as Exhibit A in your packet, and recommend that the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors approve the proposed amendments. Thank you. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions or discuss any concerns of your commission.
Thank you very much, Annie. Good synopsis of a lot of material. The following, I'll note, Exhibit A is the detail that supports what Annie was just discussing, item by item. And at this point, I think that we should open the conversation to any questions or comments from commissioners. Any commissioners wish to address this? Neil, you have your hand up.
Just for clarification, in looking at the Exhibit A, where it is underlined, is that the new language? The
Yes,
strike throughs remove the language. Where it's underlined, that's the new language.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I saw on the exhibits there, it said strike through copy, and I just want to make sure I understood it.
Very good. Thank you for that point of clarification. Are there further questions by commissioners?
Yeah, this is Carolyn.
Yes, Carol.
Well, first, I just think it's a tremendous amount of work went into this, and it answers a lot of things that we've been talking about over the last year. Well, this is one of those things where my mind's working one minute, it's not working the next. My question is about DPRs. It looks like there is there will be more DPR forms required for buildings that are 50 years old or older. It doesn't seem to me that up to now, buildings that are 50 years old are reviewed regularly to determine whether or not a DPR is appropriate. And it looks like now that's going to become clearer. So I'm just wondering if that's the case. Is there more of an emphasis on DPR forms?
Yes, I can respond to that. So we do, under the California Environmental Quality Act, one of the things that we're required to assess is whether the project has the potential to impact a historic resource. And as Commissioner knows, a lot of the buildings in the county have not been surveyed previously. So under CEQA, I do look at applications that come in, demolition of a resource that's more than 50 years old. And if there's any indication that it may qualify for listing, we do require a DPR. But the ordinance update is to codify that into our county code and provide, a more detailed process regarding how that will happen.
So in a sense, it strengthens that a bit.
Yes, right, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I was thinking. That's great.
Excuse me a minute.
Yes.
Okay,
Who's that speaking?
this is
Yeah,
Alberta.
go ahead, Alberta, please, go ahead.
I have to leave. So, I'll have to say goodbye.
Very good. We're aware of your schedule and thank you for attending. And we'll look forward to seeing you at the next meeting.
All right, thank you very much. Bye-bye now.
Bye. We are all very fortunate to have her be part of our commission. And she was ready in a timely way today. Okay, so continuing on, do other commissioners have further questions at this time? Okay.
I
Yes.
do, I have
Linda,
a
please.
question. So I haven't had time to look through every one of these items, but my eyes happened to glance and I saw this one, which is ARC-8.2I. And it says, inventory county-owned properties of historic significance. So do we have a list of county-owned properties on the inventory? That's my first question. And then the other half of that is develop plans for their protection, restoration, or adaptive reuse. And I'm wondering, and this is thinking ahead, that once we have a list and know what they are, maybe that would end up being maybe a goal.
Yes, let's see, off the top of my head, I'm probably not going to think of all of them. I know that, Valencia Hall is on the inventory in Aptos Hills, and that's owned by the county. And there are several buildings in the city that aren't on our inventory, obviously, like the Octagon Building and the Vets Hall are both in the city's inventory.
Davenport Jail?
Yes, thank you, Davenport Jail. There are like the bridges, like the Aptos Bridge that is,
Yes.
Right, and the Felton Covered Bridge.
yes, the Felton Covered Bridge, thank you, yes.
What about this is an agenda item that ties in later today. I'm referring to agenda item 8G. And I'm wondering whether the Grange Hall at the fairgrounds is part of county properties.
It probably is.
It probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see if we can.
But it might not be on our inventory. which is what she's,
Correct,
Right,
so,
yeah.
correct. Okay, so I'm naming that for now and deferring it till later to discuss.
Right, and yeah, I think, I think what I had suggested today was this, like, going through these.
Sure.
It doesn't have to happen today.
Yes.
but going
Right,
through it,
right.
Yes, but I think that's a good example of how the commission could review these and prioritize and say, we want to make this a goal or priority or. yeah.
exactly, or do a subcommittee to do a little more research.
Mhm.
Mhm. Absolutely, I think that's a great idea.
Well, what I am wondering, my current consideration is whether we're in a position to create a motion to discuss the support of this document at this time, whether the commissioners feel they have enough information to bring this to a vote of support, yes or no, or whether we should be taking these documents home and bring it back as an old business agenda item at the next meeting to conclude. So that is unknown to me. I'm brand new in my role here as chairman. So what do my fellow commissioners have to say about that?
And if I could just
Nan,
interject,
Very
so we are going to, planning anyway, to go to the planning commission in August for public hearings. So if your commission were, and then the board of supervisors later this year. So if your commission were to defer making a motion, it probably, I mean, depending on when the next meeting is, but if the next meeting is in October, it would not, the planning commission would not get your recommendation for that meeting.
I see. Well, sometimes a group is faced with more detail than can be digested, and often things are voted on in the spirit of the document and the support, and with a certain amount of trust in the details. I certainly believe that these are all improvements which further empower the preservation of historic buildings. That is the intention of the entire thing. So I wonder if we could entertain a motion and put it on the floor, a motion to vote for the support of this plan to modify the general plan with these elements. And then if it's an active vote motion, we can entertain further discussion at that time.
One quick question.
Yes.
If I might. Annie, and I think that's a great idea to vote on supporting this, but would we be able to, before the supervisors voted on it, make any more changes?
Well, under state law, the board of supervisors is not supposed to take action on an item that has not been previously considered by the planning commission. So technically, if you made a change that was not considered by the planning commission, then it should go back to the planning commission.
Okay, all right.
But the other thing I can add is that, I mean, this would be, this would be what carries forward as a sustainability update, but that doesn't mean that at a later time, for example, if your commission was working on a specific policy or item that you want to prioritize and decided that you wanted to adjust the language in a particular policy or strategy, you could certainly do that at a later time as part of, any.
Okay. I didn't know if this was then set for the, whatever it is, 5 years or something, before any more changes,
No,
clarification
right.
could be made.
Yes, there's not a
Okay,
constraint on that.
that was my concern.
Yes, right.
Well, with a good presentation by Annie, and thank you for that, Annie. The slides were very helpful, and could you kindly include them in the permanent record that we move forward with? But thank you, the presentation was clear. I believe that all of these amendments and adjustments are proper and bring us, they're not really controversial at all. these items only bring the document up to the reality, closer to the reality of how we see historic preservation in the county. So I would like to ask for a motion to vote to support the sustainability update submitted for the general plan regarding historic resources.
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Linda. Do we have a second by anyone?
A second?
Thank you, Neil. Okay, now let's have discussion. And the purpose of this discussion is on whether to vote in favor of this package. Okay.
Barry, may I make a comment?
Yes, indeed, Neil.
It is a lot of information, and obviously there's trust by people that work in these positions that understand what's going on here. So, I don't feel I have the professional expertise to necessarily critique this. But a question I do have into that section, implementation strategies, under that ARC-8, period 2, small a, it says continue to sponsor investigative research to identify new historic resources and maintain and update an inventory of historic structures, sites. And then the new language says seek funding for updating the Santa Cruz County Historic Resources Inventory, prioritizing surveys in areas that not have been recently updated. So being the newbie, I guess my question would be, when we say seek funding, what does that mean? And what does that look like? What is that?
Well, certainly, I would expect that some money would need to come out of the county budget. And I think it could also be looking for potential grants or other sources of funding that could, augment that as well. But I think it's sort of intended to be open-ended because just providing the possibility for starting to look for funding to support these.
So I guess that's my concern, is that it seems to me one of the things we've discussed in the past is having our inventory updated, but not having the means or compensation without just a massive volunteer effort to provide that updating. So I just was curious that is there a funding mechanism to use to help us with the surveys? And you're saying that it's open-ended, and I don't quite, I guess we accept that as being open-ended, but it'd be nice if it was a little more specific in terms of a way to the funding resources.
Well, I have a way that I'm interpreting reading that, and I'll share it with you, see if we have any consensus or support for this. When you look at it's like a mandate to seek funding, but then it's the responsibility of three bodies, of which we are one. Okay, the other two bodies particularly the Board of Supervisors, raises funds, and the planning department does find money in places to use it. So I would say that the Board of Supervisors is trying to assign itself this task. We're named with it, but we're not a fundraising organization. So we would point out any grants that we saw, and we might go look for some grants, but probably all we do with them is turn over those recommendations through our staffer to the board. I don't see us as the action group. I see us as being inclusive, but not being the action group for those funds.
Well, oftentimes the staff is actually the group that does submit grant applications, so that may be on the department. But I think you raise a good point in terms of saying that the Board of Supervisors is responsible. I think that also suggests that money also needs to come out of the county budget to support these.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's right. And by creating this item, this line item may help the Board of Supervisors reallocate funds in their budget for this purpose, because there's now a mandate supported by the commission to do so. So I think that in the language of it, it's just an empowerment for them to move money into preservation.
Um,
Would seem appropriate?
can I add something?
Sure.
I really second Neil's thoughts about this, because I think I wanted to ask something about this too when I was reading it. It's hard to get your hand around what these things really mean. And what I see are that we've been saying is that we want to make, and we every time we look at our goals, we're saying we want more funding for an inventory to be available for work on the inventory. And it seems like once a year we say that, or once and nothing, it just doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't rise to anyone's consciousness at the right moment. It's when the county's discussing the budget, that's not there. And so what we're looking for is not just stronger language. We want to underscore this even more, if we can, to say this is something that it's not a matter of just sort of hunting for money when you think it might be going by. It's making that a specific goal, that we can get the county to pay attention to, the county supervisors, to say this is one of those things we want to actually have done.
I think the point is we're saying, we really want a nice record of this. We'll keep talking about getting a nice record, but we don't have the funding to get to that point. So my only comment would be maybe the language is a tad stronger in identifying that the funding will come from these sources when we proceed to, do the inventory. That's just my thoughts on that.
Well, it seems like it's sort of that the wording is saying, oh, this is a move in that direction. This is a move in the direction of looking for money to get the survey completed or redone. And I think, what I would like to see is this, have it a little stronger, that we're doing more than just moving in that direction. We are actually going to do it.
I guess it's biblical that it says, seek and ye shall find.
Hey, everybody, it's Stephanie Hansen, Assistant Director. I just wanted to weigh in with a couple of comments, and I'm sorry, I've been a little bit in and out. I don't know if Annie had tried to reach out to me earlier. I wanted to kind of just remind everybody it's a 20-year plan, right? So it's great to be thinking ahead and having something in the general plan that you can point to when the opportunity arises, or as even trying to define the work plan for the commission. We're still in the kind of the same boat of like needing support at the Board of Supervisors level, but at least when the tides change a little bit and there is more support, then you can always kind of point to this particular implementation strategy. So it's really setting a policy basis, right? So you can, in the future, you can kind of move ahead, and there's something in the general plan that supports you in doing that, whether it's the staff who finds grants, or commission subcommittee, or whomever in turn, however you do it. So having it broad is probably a good thing. The reason why I kind of popped my head in here is that you want to keep that language in a supportive kind of a structure. There are many, this project is thousands of these things, right? So we've gone through almost every chapter of the general plan. There's so much language, and the other pieces of the general plan and the environment and transportation and in moving our land uses forward and building more housing. And there's a lot of those support statements that's appropriate in a policy document. The thing that would be harder to do and wouldn't be as appropriate, because only the Board of Supervisors can really say, like, this is how we want to spend county budget. Um, so we want to be careful on how we're crafting the language. We want it to be supportive, but it's not really appropriate to kind of say, the Board of Supervisors will do this, right? So I just wanted to kind of say, hey, and throw that policy kind of structure language out there for your consideration if you are talking about making any changes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stephanie.
And if I could just add to that too, I know Carolyn mentioned that, we've been talking about this for many years, but I don't know that we've approached the board, or the commissioners approached the board with that, but thinking about prioritizing and funding, but that would certainly, be an option if at some point it seemed like the right time to directly approach the board and say, we would like your board to consider, allocating funds from the budget for surveys, so that would be something that could bring it to the board's attention, so.
Yes, I agree with you. I'm going to go back to what I said in response to Neil before. I think that rather than looking at making this stronger, let's acknowledge that I believe, well, if you agree with my perception, I believe that the supervisors are giving themselves a task so that they can refer to this and say, we approved this task and now we're implementing on it. As opposed to before this, where there was no language that spoke of updating the inventory and prioritizing the areas yet unsurveyed. So being with the input and clarification by both Stephanie and Annie, I am personally of the opinion that we could vote to support this document, that it would only be empowering us. It may not be perfect, but it's not up to us to get this document perfect. It's up to the Board of Supervisors, and this represents a huge step forward on their part to recognize the priorities of historic preservation. So I would be in support of supporting this document for the board at this time. Are there any other comments from commissioners? Okay, there's hands up, but from where I sit, I can't see whose hand is up. I see Becky is one, and there's another person as well.
Carolyn again,
Oh, Carolyn, you get to go first. You're the commissioner.
Oh, well, thank you. But no, I just wanted to say that, I didn't want to direct my comments in a way that would say that I'm opposed to the way things are or the language. Because I agree with that. But I also get a little frustrated because I've been here before. I have this tremendous sense of deja vu, that for years and years, we've been trying to get the Board of Supervisors to provide funding for the survey. And I appreciated Annie's comment that if you could, I appreciate what the authors of this document have gone through and all of the pressure from all the different directions and the whole picture. I realize that this is just a tiny bit of the picture, but I'm just seeking a way that we can say as strongly as possible that getting funding for the survey is very important to the commission. And I would just like it that the Board of Supervisors knew that. It isn't that we want to force them to do anything. I mean, that's how I feel. I don't feel like I want to force them to because they have an even bigger, they have all the little tiny demands and comments and concerns of thousands and thousands of constituents. But But I do think that that what our commission is concerned about does need to be known.
I think there's an easy way we can do that. I'm going to suggest the following, okay? If we were to make a small modification to the motion on the table right now to vote in support of this, if we were to amend that and highlight that we support this document and that we particularly urge you to move forward on item 8.2A, that would be just an enhancement and an further encouragement from us, but we could support the document intact as it is. And that would be a helpful and good strategy at this time. And we could add a comment if somebody wanted to make such an amendment, that we urge you to prioritize item 8.2A. So if that works for somebody, somebody could take some action on it. If not, we have a motion as proposed, and I'm going to try to close out the comments by the commissioners and move to comments by the public. Any commissioners have anything to say? Anybody want to make such an amendment? How do you feel about that?
I have a suggestion, Barry, too. Not sure if that's normal. I don't step in what's way. That's normally the way we would make a motion, but we could adjust the wording slightly to say prioritize seeking funding for updating the inventory to show that it's a priority.
Mhm.
Okay. So what we would do is we would vote in support of the document with one modification.
Right, that could be one way to show that it's a, priority.
Okay. Do we have any commissioner comments or discussion on this?
I would support that.
I would support it too.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is that we want to amend the motion on the table to accept the document with one change, and that's to add the word prioritize to item 8.2A. Do we have such a motion on the floor?
I will move that.
I think that's how we legally do it. We modify the motion to accept with that one change.
Sure, we could do
Do we
that.
have such a motion on the floor?
I will make that motion.
Thank you. Okay.
I'll second it.
Please. Thank you for the second. Okay. Now, I would like to quickly cut to any vital comments by commissioners on this amended proposal. It sounds like we have something we can work with. Okay. Any commissioner comments? Okay. If not, I'm going to recognize the public comments. I'd like to ask you, for time's sake, please keep your comments to the 3-minute limitation. And I think the first person is Becky.
Thank you very much. This is Becky Steinbrunner. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. First of all, your commission needs to understand that it is not the Board of Supervisors that runs the budget and the county. It is the county administrative officer. So that's the person that controls the purse strings and controls the Board of Supervisors. I've seen it throughout the time that I've been observing local government meetings. So again, I think it is very important for you as commissioners to meet regularly with the supervisor that appointed you. They've got homeless issues predominantly on their minds. So historic resources preservation falls off the table very quickly unless they are continually reminded and why it is important. So I trust that you are doing that and hope that you will continue to do that. I'm going to run out of time, so I want to make sure that in on page 4, I think this is Exhibit A, ARC 8.2 N as in Nancy. I object to the Aptos Village being taken off any potential to create a historic district. Just because it was tried and failed does not mean that it should be taken off the table for future consideration. I think in that language proposed, the word consider is too weak, and I think it needs to be replaced with the word support and incentivize to help these historic districts form, and which will in turn support historic preservation on the ground. I am very curious. I hope that you do not approve this, because you don't have enough information. There is language in it that talks about staff developing ordinances that you haven't even seen. Your commission is incredibly powerful. I don't think you understand that, how much power your commission has when it comes to environmental impact review of projects. We saw that when the Aptos Village project came to your commission, and I'm sure that Commissioner Swift has stories to tell about how stressful that was, but your commission could have held up that project with additional remediations and mitigations. So you have a lot of power, and the people entrust you with this power because we care about historic preservation. And so I don't think you should approve this. Many times the Planning Commission's agenda gets altered, and I think that you should have first dibs at all of this with careful and consideration before it goes to the Planning Commission. So please do not approve it. There's no mention at all when these ordinances would come before you. The environmental impact report has public comment closed on May 31st. So how can that fit? I want to quickly just say I support
I'm sorry,
all
we're out
efforts
of 3 minutes, please.
for the demolition by neglect, and item 8.2H is in Harry. Please support the Mills Act. Thank you. I'll send these in written comment so that they are part of the record. I have a lot more. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have another comment from the public coming in? Let's see. Do we see any hands up?
There's no other hands up.
Okay, thank you. So we'll conclude the public comments, and we've concluded the commissioner comments. So I think that we're at the point where we would call for a vote on the motion on the floor. If you all agree with me, I think it's time that we call for the vote. So we'll do it by roll call, and this is my first vote that I'm calling for. Thank you very much, everyone, for cooperating. Commissioner Woods, how do you vote on this?
Oh, looks like you're muted, Neil.
That's tough for me for this amount of information. And then against the deadline we have, I'm just in a quandary on this vote. But I guess I would say yes at this point.
Okay, we have a yes from Commissioner Woods. Commissioner Orlando has left the meeting. Commissioner Phillips? Aye. Very good. Commissioner Swift?
You know, I share Neil's feeling. Now I'm worried that if at least two of us feel like we don't have, full grasp of all the information, if we shouldn't see if there's a way we could investigate, revisit this and get more, study it more. I mean.
Right, well, there seems to be a very sensitive time issue. And I think that there's enough concern raised from two commissioners that I'd like to ask Annie if she can repeat and review with us again the current timetable that's upcoming regarding this material.
Stephanie, I believe the first planning commission hearing is August 24th. Is that right?
That's correct. August 24th is the first one, and then there's a second one, mid-September. I'd have to look at the date, the 14th, I believe.
Okay.
And after that, there'll be presumably, if they stick to that schedule, they would be making a recommendation to the board, which would the amendments are scheduled to go to the board in October.
So that's if I may ask, Stephanie, did you say that that was a September 14th meeting?
Mm-hmm.
And from that 14th meeting, a decision will be made. By the planning commission on what their recommendation would be to the Board of Supervisors.
Correct.
Okay, so it looks to me like we have several options in front of us. By continuing to call for a vote and having a conclusion on the issue on the table, which is to vote in favor of the recommendation. I'm also seeing kind of a complex conundrum in front of us here today. We're in an exceptionally unusual situation because we're now at 10 minutes to 1 p.m. and we're still fairly early in our agenda. A combination of being an hour late based on technical difficulties, plus the MA presentation, which is a very unusual annual item, is making me think that we may not get through our agenda today. Would these two reasons give us enough of a reason to try to call a special meeting between now and September 14th? And what we could do at the special meeting was we could all revisit the proposals on the sustainability for the general plan. And we could also complete the rest of the agenda items not yet covered today. So there is a thought that I'm putting out as chair to my fellow commissioners that could be a way to resolve several things that are going on here kind of at once. So would anybody wish to comment on that? How does that sound to you all?
Well, I would trade off another special meeting to be more informed on this document, having just received it 3 days ago, and then having a busy weekend. And, you know, I think Steinbrunner brought up a point. There's something being struck here in the document that's probably worth some considerations. The Aptos Village, obviously something I missed when we read, you know, just skimmed through it. So I'm open to have a special meeting because I think it's important that even we get this language as good as we can, not to just go crazy with this, but, you know, I feel almost malpractice in a way that I haven't had any time to digest this and really read through this because of just getting this information so late.
I would agree with you. I don't particularly, I think all of us collectively got caught in a squeeze play with so many factors needing to come together time-wise. And I also recognize that the Planning Commission has a huge job in front of them to go through this material in several meetings. And we do want to give our input. I think that it's great that they're asking for our input, and we do want to be a participant. So any other comments from commissioners? Carolyn, what do you think about this?
I agree. Given that we lost an hour this morning, and you know, and the information does come to us a little late, and what I'm afraid of is that I'm going to agree with something and then something will happen later on and they'll say, well, you approved that, you know, you agreed with that, you know, and well, why didn't you know that was in there? So I guess it's hard to agree with something, even though you kind of sense, okay, this sounds good. This is probably something we want to support. If you do, but I don't know everything that I read. I mean, skimmed is what I got to do. So I would.
Very good. I appreciate that point of view. You can tell from the way I'm asking the questions that my inclinations are the same. And if we are in fact going to be a responsible group and be willing to stand behind the decisions we make, there is a lot of detail in here that I'm a little uncomfortable agreeing with. I think the spirit of it's great. We may likely find we agree with every detail, but I think we want to know those details so that we can defend the reason that we voted for this document. So I have a motion I suggest following proposed right, to the group. I suggest that we take a vote on the motion on the floor. The vote is to support and approve the document. Maybe we should vote in such a way that immediately following our vote, we put a new motion on the floor to continue to consider this. But in front of you now, you have a motion to accept this document as written. Okay, so the first thing we have to do procedurally in order to maintain our legitimacy as a commission and to conform to the Brown Act, the first thing we have to do is vote on the motion on the floor. My proposal is that if this group were to vote it down and immediately make a motion to continue discussing it, that we're voting it down momentarily in favor of a more thorough investigation, that would be something that seems to be the will of the commissioners that I am interpreting. So at this time, I am going to call for a fresh vote on this motion to accept the proposals as written and accept them fully at this time, just articulating the detail of the motion. So
Isn't it possible just to withdraw the motion?
if somebody so proposes, it is. My job is to drive it to completion. But if you would like to propose right now that we withdraw it, and
well,
if the people
if our intent is to vote on it again with a different motion,
perfect.
yeah, I would withdraw.
Okay, who made the first and who made the second?
I thought I made it, but maybe.
Yeah, we're just checking notes for that.
Yeah.
I think you did, Carolyn.
I think I seconded.
Okay, if you two would withdraw your firsting and seconding of the motion.
Okay, I would.
Is that, may I call for that? Are you in fact withdrawing?
Yes.
Okay, Neil.
And I'm withdrawing the second.
Okay, good. We're going to trust our, we've just given an extra assignment to Annie, which is to word what is going on right now and put this down in the minutes. Good luck with that. But I believe that the motion has been withdrawn, and I believe that I'm hearing there could be an upcoming motion to defer the vote to our next scheduled meeting. Would such a motion come from someone?
Chair, you were you not talking about a special meeting or the next scheduled meeting?
Yeah,
Well,
good
no,
point,
what
Stephanie.
Thank you. What I was trying to do as protocol was to deal with the item first, which is to put the item into our next meeting, and then we need to make a different vote to have a special meeting. I think that's,
Okay, because you said the next regular scheduled meeting.
no, I didn't say regular schedule, I just said next meeting. Whether that's the special, I'm hoping it will be a special meeting, but we don't have such a meeting on the books yet. So, we need somebody to create a motion to defer the conversation to our next specially scheduled meeting.
Okay, I will make a motion to defer the discussion on the general plan as submitted as part of the sustainability update until our next meeting, whether it be the special meeting or a regular meeting.
Very good. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Neil. I don't think we need any discussion. I think we've had all the discussion we need. So I would like to call for a vote, motion on the floor, which is to defer this for our next meeting of any sort, either special or regular. Okay, all in favor, we'll start with Commissioner Woods,
Aye.
Commissioner Phillips,
Aye.
Commissioner Swift,
Aye.
Commissioner Pearlman, aye. Okay, we are deferring this. Now, I believe that we're at 1:00 p.m. Would someone be interested in calling a motion that we both, that we schedule a special meeting to be held before, let's say, September 10th? And that we defer the rest of today's agenda, beginning with item 8C. That would become the first item on the special meeting agenda. And we would look for a conclusion and vote at that time. So I'm calling for a motion.
I move,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Neil. Okay.
I'm just thinking about the timing that your commission would need to meet in order to be able to provide a motion to the planning commission regarding these amendments.
Yeah, I just picked a few days ahead.
Yeah.
You could do better for us.
So Stephanie, do you think that it would work for the HRC motion to be considered by the planning commission at their second hearing? I'm not sure how our hearings will be doing.
Yeah, thank you, Annie. The cleanest way would be for the commission to have a second meeting in July in order to make it into the documents that go to the planning commission. So that we have them in there from the beginning. We can go over, we're liable to go over general plan changes first, because as you know, this is a huge project, involves code changes also, map changes also, design guidelines also. And so the best kind of order of things is to do it from the policy level, do the general plan first, and then dig down into whatever code changes are also being proposed. So that would be staff's request. The earlier, the better.
And there's quite a bit of steep time to get the planning commission materials out, so.
Okay, well, I think that we have a assertive group of like-minded, positive people here on as our commissioners. We're fortunate enough to repeat what was just said. Stephanie is recommending that we try to have our special meeting in July so that we're able to send our comments and our results of item 8C to the planning commission for their August considerations. So it's going to be tight and difficult to do, but if we all can get a little flexible, we can make it happen. And we only need a quorum. So if we have a commissioner or two that can't make it, we may still need to drive forward for a meeting.
Well,
I move that we schedule a special meeting in July, either Monday, the 18th, or Monday, the 25th, and to complete our items on the agenda. Due to technical difficulties we had today to begin this meeting.
Thank you for the motion. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Carolyn. Okay. I don't note if it needs much discussion, but I would like to ask for a comment by Annie of whether that is doable.
I would just like to suggest that maybe we don't include specific dates yet, because I think I can send out an inquiry and see when people are available. I need to make sure the room's available, but we could certainly have the motion be scheduled a special meeting in July and maybe leave it at that for now.
Okay, Neil suggested that we take out the specific dates and leave it with July. It's your motion. How do you feel about that?
That's fine. I was just trying to bounce it down to another Monday that seems to work. But we can remove those dates.
Yeah, I think it gives staff a bit more flexibility.
That's fine.
With the understanding that Mondays are probably the best for us. Okay, do we have, we have a second from Carolyn on that? Are you
Yep.
okay with modifying for that second?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So we have a motion to have a meeting in July, a special meeting that we would begin our meeting with what is currently on today's agenda, item 8C. That will be item 1A for our new meeting, or right after the protocols. We'll move right into that and try to have our next meeting be as economical and efficient as possible. Okay, so let's call for a vote on that motion to move to a special meeting in July. Commissioner Woods?
Aye.
Okay, Commissioner Phillips? Aye. Commissioner Swift?
Aye.
Commissioner Pearlman? Aye. Okay, that motion has passed. And with that motion passed, I think that the appropriate thing to do is to thank you all for attending and to move towards adjournment of today's meeting. So concluded. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you for our guests for coming. And I will try to improve my effectiveness level for the next meeting, but I want to thank you all for cooperating today. We'll look for an update from Annie, who will be reaching out to us probably pretty darn quickly. And I'm going to ask everybody to be as flexible as possible for the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
And Annie, if you can stop the recording. Oh,